Yeah, so this is kind of another try, changing format a little bit, but making something that is kind of got some permanence to it. Maybe this will okay now, but we're just gonna wait for someone to come in. Hang on one second. Doesn't need to have any. So hopefully you can all hear me. We're going to be getting back into Romans. Actually, I'm going to reread Romans 6, and I'll have it on screen for you to read along. I am reading from the Message. Edition. For that next time before we read the next chapter. Let's try some things here. So what I was reading from last time is actually reading off of my iPad right out of Logos. We were reading The Message, which is a version of the Bible that was paraphrased / translated, more paraphrase by Eugene Peterson, who passed away about, I don't know, maybe 3-4 years ago. I have to double check that. Maybe, time's been going past a lot faster than I give it credit for. So let me stop my screen share here and add I'll go full screen here on screen 2. I'll bring that up. There we are. So, kind of covering my face a little bit, but I figure you can cope with that a little bit. I'm going to put myself down here in the corner as we read. So, this is Romans 6. Which is a epistle written by Paul to those who are living at Rome and is addressed to you and I. So here we go. So, by the way, when I read chapter 6, I think it was 2 days ago, testing this platform out, and I can probably take my ticker down here. When I read this a couple of days ago, what we were looking at is about halfway through chapter 5. It gives a little better context. I don't think I'm going to do that today because I want to get back through 6, because 6 is setting the context for getting into Romans chapter 7, and I want to get all of 7 done, and then keep it nice and tight right after that. So that's where we're at. So Romans 6. So what do we do? Keep on sinning so that God can keep on forgiving? I should hope not. If we've left the country where sin is sovereign, how can we still live in our old house there? Or didn't you realize that we've packed up and left there for good? That is what happened in baptism. When we went under the water, we left our old country. We left the old country. The scrolling's a little granular here. You left the old country of sin behind. When we came up out of the water, we entered into the new country of grace, a new life in a new land. That's what baptism into the life of Jesus means. When we are lowered into the water, it's like the burial of Jesus. When we are raised up out of the water, it is like the resurrection of Jesus. Each of us is raised into a light-filled world by our Father so that we can see where we're going in our new grace sovereign country. Could it be any clearer? Our old way of life was nailed to the cross with Christ, a decisive end to that sin miserable life. No longer at sin's every beck and call. What we believe is this: if we get included in Christ's sin conquering death, we also get included in his life saving resurrection. We know that when Jesus was raised from the dead, it was a signal of the end of death as the end. Never again will death have the last word. When Jesus died, he took sin down with him, but alive, he brings God down to us. From now on, think of it this way: sin speaks a dead language that means nothing to you. God speaks your mother tongue, and you hang on every word. You are dead to sin and alive to God. That's what Jesus did. That means you must not give sin a vote in the way you conduct your lives. Don't give it the time of day. Don't even run little errands that are connected with that old way of life. Throw yourself wholeheartedly and full time. Remember, you've been raised, you've been raised from the dead into God's way of doing things. Sin can't tell you how to live. After all, you're not living under that old tyranny any longer. You're living in the freedom of God. I don't read these titles. I prefer not to read the titles. So you see, this is covering from 15 to 18. So since we're out of under that old tyranny, does it mean that we can live any old way that we want? Since we're free in the freedom of God, can we do anything that comes to mind? Hardly. You know well enough from your own experience that there are some acts of so-called freedom that destroy freedom. Offer yourselves to sin, for instance, and it's your last free act. But offer yourselves to the ways of God, and the freedom never quits. All your lives, you've let sin tell you what to do, but thank God you've started listening to a new master, one whose commands set you free to live openly in his freedom. I'm using this freedom language because it's easy to picture. You can readily recall, can't you, how at one time, the more you did just what you felt like doing, not caring about others, not caring about God, the worse your life became and the less freedom that you had. And how much different is it now that you live in God's freedom, your lives healed and expansive in holiness? As long as you did what you felt like doing, ignoring God, you didn't have to bother with the right thinking or right living or right anything for that matter. But do you call that a free life? What did you get out of it? Nothing you're proud of now. Where did it get you? To a dead end. But now you've found you don't have to listen to sin tell you what to do, and have discovered the delight of listening to God telling you. What a surprise. A whole heart, healed, put together life right now, with more and more of life on the way. Work hard for sin, and your whole life and your pension is death. But God's gift is real life, eternal life, delivered by Jesus, our Master. Shouldn't have any trouble understanding this, friends, for you know that all the ins and outs of the law, how it works, how its power touches only the living. For instance, a wife is legally tied. By the way, we're in 7 now. It went by so fast, I didn't take the time to even announce it. So let me put the banner up here. We're in 7. I'm going to back it up. Torn between one way and another. This is actually a very amazing analogy, and this edition of how to read it it's insightful. So I'm going to start over. Here we go. Chapter 7. You shouldn't have any trouble understanding this, friends, for you know all the ins and outs of the law, how it works, how its power touches only the living. For instance, a wife is legally tied to her husband while he lives, but if he dies, she's free. If she lives with another man while her husband is living, she's obviously an adulteress. But if he dies, she is quite free to marry another man in good conscience with no one's disapproval. So, my friends, this is something like what has taken place with you. When Christ died, he took that entire rule-dominated way of life down with him and left it in the tomb, leaving you free to marry a resurrection life and bear offspring of faith for God. For as long as we lived that old way of life, doing whatever we felt we could get away with, sin was calling most of the shots, and the old law code hemmed us in. And this made us all the more rebellious. In the end, all we had to show for it was the miscarriages and stillbirths. But now that we're no longer shackled to that domineering mate of sin and out from under all those oppressive regulations and fine print, we're free to live a new life in the freedom of God. But I can hear you say, if the law code was as bad as all that, it's no better than sin itself. That's certainly not true. The law code had a perfectly legitimate function. Without its clear guidelines for right and wrong, moral behavior would be mostly guesswork. Apart from the succinct surgical command, "You shall not covet," I could have dressed covetousness up to look like a virtue and ruined my life with it. But you remember how it was? I do, perfectly well. The law code started out as an excellent piece of work. What happened, though, is that sin found a way to pervert the command into a temptation, making it a piece of forbidden fruit out of it. The law code, instead of being used to guide me, was used to seduce me. Without all the paraphernalia of the law code, sin looked pretty much dull and lifeless. And I went along without paying much attention to it. But once sin got its hands on the law code, it's hard for me to put the word code in there. But once sin got its hands on the law code and decked itself out in all of that finery, I was fooled and fell for it. The very command that was supposed to guide me into life was cleverly used to trip me up, throw me headlong. So sin was plenty alive, and I was stone dead. But the law code itself is God's good and common sense, each command sane and holy counsel. I can already hear your next question. Does that mean I can't even trust what is good? That is the law? Is good just as dangerous as evil? No, again, sin simply did what sin is so famous for doing, using the good as a cover to tempt me to do that which would finally destroy me. By hiding within God's good commandment, sin did far more mischief than it could ever have accomplished on its own. I can anticipate the response that is coming. I know that all God's commandments are spiritual, but I'm not. Isn't this also your experience? Yes. I'm full of myself, after all. I've spent a long time in sin's prison. What I don't understand about myself is that I decide one way, but then I act another, doing things I absolutely despise. So if I can't be trusted to figure out what is best for myself and then do it, it becomes obvious that God's command is necessary. But I need something more. For if I know the law, but I still can't keep it, and if the power of sin within me keeps sabotaging my best intentions, I obviously need help. I realize that I don't have what it takes. I can will it, but I can't do it. I decide to do good, but I don't really do it. I decide not to do bad, but then I do it anyway. My decisions, such as they are, don't result in actions. Something has gone wrong deep within me, and it gets the better of me every time. It happens so regularly that it's predictable. The moment I decide to do good, sin is there to trip me up. I truly delight in God's commands, but it's pretty obvious that not all of me joins in that delight. Parts of me covertly rebel, and just when I least expect it, they take charge. I've tried everything, and nothing helps. I'm at the end of my rope. There is no one who can do anything. Is there no one who can do anything for me? Isn't that the real question? I think in the King James is, who will deliver me from this dead body? Because they would tie the Eastern thing to do is they would tie you to a dead body. I have to look up that Orientalism, I guess you would call it, and share that with you later. But we'll go into 724 in the King James later. So back to, is there no one who can do anything for me? Isn't that the real question? The answer, thank God, is that Jesus Christ can and does. He acted to set things right in this life of contradictions where I want to serve God with all my heart and mind, and I am pulled by the influence of sin to do something totally different. 7. We could go on to 8, but I think I'm going to stop here. I'd like to keep on reading. I may just go ahead and keep on reading, but I'm going to stop this broadcast. I will read 8 with you on Monday. So have a wonderful Sabbath. I will be resting tonight as the sun sets until the sun comes back. So I appreciate all of you. Have a great weekend. Get into the Word, read it, find something. I don't know. I find something about it that I don't know. I don't know what to say here. I was going to say find a translation, but I really think it takes more than that. I think you need to just discipline yourself to take the time to actually let your mind get back into reading. And hopefully me reading this to you maybe sparks something and you'll read this on your own. So I'm sure blessed you guys took some time to listen. I may take this down. This is all still experimental for me. I'll have the recording. We'll probably do something with this later, but that's it. That's all I got. Thanks. See ya.